Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the Fin Side with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the Fansided Network and FinFanatic.com. So, Paul, a little bit of news we weren't really expecting um, here over the last couple of days. The Dolphins extend Jerome Baker, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But they also just, as of about, um, the last couple hours, signed another offensive lineman, Jermaine Eluemunor, here from the New England Patriots. He started 8 games for them last year, and it looks like they've got a little bit more competition for those backup roles with DJ Fluker and with Jesse Davis.
Yeah, and you know what? I like this. I like taking these project offensive linemen and spinning them around in a circle and seeing what sticks. Illuminor offers a lot of versatility, which is something we've talked about extensively that the Dolphins really like in their offensive line. And I like the fact that they're in a position, and Flores said it on his presser the other day, the best 5 offensive linemen are going to start come hell or high water. And that's what I like to hear. I mean, yes, I really saw a lot of promise in the 3 rookies last year, but they've got some guys to come in and give them a shove and make them better, if nothing else, or take their job if they get complacent in the offseason.
And Illuminor, not a surprise, 6'5" or 6'4", 335 to 340 pounds there. Every single offensive lineman the Dolphins draft or sign, it looks like they're exactly the same size. Even if it's DJ Fluker, if they trade for Isaiah Wilson, Robert Hunt, Solomon Kitt, they're all 6'4", 6'5", 340. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're big and you're versatile and the arrow's pointing up in your career, typically the Dolphins are going to have some interest in you along the offensive line.
Give me a 6'10", 440-pound freaking monster. That's what I'm waiting for at this point. Put him in at right tackle and let's go.
You would have the arm length that I look for at least. So we would probably
With 28-inch arms.
yeah, with 28-inch arms, yeah.
Look like a T-Rex out there on the field.
No, it would be 32.5-inch arms. It would just be too short for my liking. But yeah, and just a little bit of background too on this guy. He was a 5th-round pick in 2017 from the Ravens. I remember him that draft. I actually had a lot of interest in him there on day 3 of the draft because he was very, very raw. He actually comes from England and didn't have a whole lot of experience. His mentor at Texas A&M was Jim Turner, the former Dolphins offensive line coach, who was involved in the Bullygate scandal, which I found to be a bunch of nonsense. We won't get into that, but Jermaine Eluemunor, though, is somebody that in 2017 with the Ravens, he was actually the PFWA made the all rookie team at guard after starting a few games there for the Ravens. The Patriots in 2019 thought enough of him they traded a 4th-round pick to the Ravens for Eluemunor and a 6th-round pick. I was a little surprised he was out there in the free agent market. So I think it sets up, an interesting competition between DJ Fluker and Jermaine Eluemunor for that tackle spot because these are really 1-year contracts with nothing guaranteed.
Yeah, and it's Illuminor, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the rawness factor. It's the upside is there, and if he can achieve it, he could end up being a steal. And I think that segues us perfectly actually to the Jerome Baker thing. The fact that Jerome Baker earned his extension, the fact that he showed the upside, showed the promise, put the work in, showed the improvement, and really the Dolphins are starting to reward those guys that do and shed those guys that don't, or their potential or their ceiling that the Dolphins see isn't as high as they hoped it would be. And we're in a position now where we've got that roster churn in a good way where that's concerned.
Exactly right. The Dolphins waived Timon Paris. Yeah, I mean, he's used to being cut, so he'll get over it. Eluemunor, one last thing on Eluemunor before we move on to Baker. According to Travis Wingfield, was charged with just 4 pressures allowed in 2020 and 201 pass blocking snaps. That comes from Travis Wingfield tweeted out, but it comes from PFF. So yeah, I mean, I like the signing. I see really no risk with it. So yeah, but the big news, Paul, is Jerome Baker, and I've got to be honest. I didn't really expect this to happen at all. I was very, very happy, not only with the contract, but the fact that he was re-signed, where a day before there was a report on NFL.com where Jerome Baker was asked about his contract, and he basically said, I'm not going to worry about it. We haven't heard anything. I thought this was going to be something that took place after the season, and the Dolphins may have had to franchise tag him. But
So
they
I'm going to jump in
extended.
actually because I was on that. I was actually on that press call. He didn't say he hadn't heard about it. He just said he wasn't worried about it. And I think we can see why at this point. And yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. Go ahead and keep going with that, but I just figured I'd jump in with that
So
one.
maybe he didn't say it in the presser, but on NFL.com it said he said on June 12th, I mean, we really haven't talked about anything. And he also said, I want to play here for the rest of my career. I love it here. I love the fans. I love the organization. I love everybody here. Yeah, I definitely see myself playing here for a long time.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, and I look at the contract too. And I always said that when Baker if he were to get re-signed, this would be the same type of deal as Jalen Smith that when he signed with the Cowboys, which was about 5 years, 70 million. And I know those are big boy numbers, but Jerome Baker put up big boy numbers last year. I mean, for all that Brian Flores and Josh Boyer asked their linebackers to do, with all the blitzing they asked him to do, the coverages, the man-to-man defense, he had 112 tackles, 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. And he really is today's NFL linebacker. Not the greatest run defender, but he doesn't have to be. 6'2", 225 pounds, and he plays at a 4.5 40 speed level. So, yeah, I'm stoked about this. This to me, and I think we've agreed on this, was probably the biggest re-signing the Dolphins had to have moving forward here over the next year.
he was, and like I want to say too, Jerome Baker's one of only two players in the NFL to have 100 tackles and at least 7 sacks last year. Period. Like there isn't another one out there. There's one other one out there, and that is huge. And I know people don't love his coverage skills. I don't have a huge problem with him. He's still a developing player coming on, like finishing his rookie contract with an extension added to it. He's got the speed. He's got one of the top plays in Dolphins history with that sack of Patrick Mahomes last year of the 30-yard loss. Like I still love the fact that even with a helmet on, you could see Mahomes' surprised reaction after he did his patented little spin move that usually gets him out of trouble, and Baker's in his face and he didn't know what to do with it. There's a ton to love with this signing. And you know what? The other thing I want to add to that too, that the first thought that came to my mind was he better put his mama in better seats so he can find her next year. Because he shouldn't
Yeah,
have to look for her with that big contract.
yeah, you're not kidding. Right. At first, anybody who says that they don't like Baker's coverage skills, I mean, it's frankly, it's not an opinion I take very seriously. So,
Yeah.
look, and in fact, Next Gen Stats and Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins Network actually pointed this out that the NFL.com and Next Gen Stats put out the top 10 coverage players in 2020 based on a bunch of metrics. Xavier Howard was number one on that list. Jerome Baker, they made a point to have been on that list, but he missed one criteria. I think it was tight window throws. Didn't have quite enough to qualify for it. Otherwise, he would have been on that list too. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely stoked that the Dolphins re-signed him. And also, my understanding, Paul, of the contract is that in 2021, this year, his salary is not going to change. They just added 3 more years back into that contract. So,
That is correct.
so 2022 to 2024 is when he's going to get that 3 year, $39 million with 28.4 million guaranteed. And the Dolphins are going to have a lot more money at that time too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to answer the two things in the chat. D-Dub, I don't think Miami needs to focus on a true inside linebacker in the 2022 draft. We've got Bernardrick McKinney here. We've got Jerome Baker on the inside now. And we've got some of those sneaky good edge guys at this point at linebacker. So only really if the right opportunity presents itself should they even be looking to add somebody into that mix. It's there are other positions that they can focus on, and only if the right player falls. And Shake, I don't think she should be in a skybox. I think she should be in the 72 club. But anyway, I don't know what your thoughts are there, Kat, as far as the inside linebacker position, but I think we're in good shape as it stands right
Right.
now.
Well, I think the most important thing to remember too, and we talked about this all the time, is you know it's not a 4-3 or a 3-4 defense anymore. Everyone plays with five defensive backs. Somewhere between 60 and 80% of the time. Dolphins play with five defensive backs on the field over 70% of the time. So they're going to be playing with two linebackers. So um, you've got Jerome Baker, who played 84% of defensive snaps last year. You've got Bernardrick McKinney that you're paying a lot of money to be that second linebacker. Andrew Van Ginkel, you want to call him an edge, you want to call him a pass rusher, off-ball linebacker. He's going to be on the field playing a lot more snaps. I think the Dolphins are fine at linebacker.
And
So
Phillips,
yeah,
Phillips is going to come from that stand-up linebacker type position at times too.
right,
Like,
exactly. And so really Van Ginkel and Phillips may have some overlapping responsibilities there too. And who knows, if Vince Beagle can come back into form here and play and add the same depth that he did and or play at the same level he did in 2019 before he got hurt, you've got great depth there at the linebacker spot. So yeah, I certainly love this here. And just a few players that even after this contract in the NFL are getting more money than Jerome Baker. Bobby Wagner for the Seahawks, who's great. Zach Cunningham from the Texans, Miles Jack from the Jaguars, C.J. Mosley from the Jets. Who knows if he'll even ever play? Deion Jones from the Falcons, Shaq Thompson from the Panthers, Levante David coming off a great season for the Bucks. But you've got 7 or 8 linebackers, and I think Jerome Baker is right up there with all of them. I think he's better than a handful of the players on this list.
well, and here's the factor as well that I keep thinking about. I thought about more as you were talking. Is outside a cornerback, everybody else, and maybe a really fat guy. Everybody else's roles are fairly fluid, whether it's along the defensive line, if there are linemen on the field, uh, within the front seven, or even from the safety role. The roles are very fluid in this defense, and you're asked to do a lot of things that label would lie about as far as what you do in your role. Like, you may see Baker flip over towards the edge on a given play, or you may see McKinney like right up at the line of scrimmage on a given play. You may see Javon Holland standing up there at the line of scrimmage and covering the deep middle from there, or rushing the passer from deep. It's this defense asks you to do a lot of different things. The most stable positions on this defense are Xavier Howard's probably going to be on somebody, and Byron Jones is probably going to be on somebody. Everybody else in between the two of them is fluid. We may see Christian Wilkins back in coverage. We may see Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins drop, and Jerome Baker and Bernardrick McKinney come off the edge. And that's what I love about the way Flores and company are running this defense, is you don't know who's going to be where, and that's very hard to plan for from an offensive standpoint, let alone for an offensive line.
There are several constants in this defense, and I've always said in this defense there are 3 players that are irreplaceable for what the Dolphins like to do, and that's man-to-man coverage a lot. Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, Jerome Baker. Those are the 3. And yeah, you need some pass rush, but the Dolphins, when they weren't blitzing, they didn't have. They struggled to get to the quarterback with just sending 3 or 4. That's where the Jalen Phillips pick really comes into play here, and could may have a huge benefit here in 2021. But you can blitz a lot, but you need to have players in the back cover. That's where Baker, Howard, and Byron Jones come into play. So yeah, he was the guy to me that you needed to keep because play and also with Baker too. Doesn't turn 25 years old until week 15 of this season. I mean, he at the end of the season, this guy was 23 years old for most of last season. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who's got a lot left ahead of him here. I mean, when his contract ends, when he signed in 2024, at the end of 2024, he will barely be 28 years old and presumably in the prime of his career. So that's why I love this signing here too.
Yeah, and one of the things I love too, because this contract really made me sit back and think. And one of your tweets the other day, actually, your 2 down, 2 to go tweet, made me sit back and think. The Dolphins have now put themselves in a position roster-wise, in a very short time, the way they turn this roster over, where no player has the power to hold the Dolphins over a barrel. They're going to reward people, but within the context of their own terms, as far as that goes. Like, they've created a culture where the players want to be there. We heard that from Jerome Baker. They've created a culture where if you try to hold them over a barrel and they don't want to pay what your price tag says, they don't have to. It's now there are players we want to see that with, where we keep Xavier Howard here as an example because of the contract rumblings with him. Mike Gesicki. We want to see Mike Gesicki stay. I think both of us are on the same page there as far as that goes.
Definitely.
But they don't have to. They can plan for Gesicki to walk if he so chooses, or if he comes in and I want to be the first $25 million tight end. Good for you, buddy. Good luck. Like, and maybe you come crying back like, hey, remember that time I said that? I was kidding, guys. Like, but at the end of the day, the Dolphins don't have to pay that guy if he refuses to meet them on their terms and be part of that culture of winning while still getting rewarded, as we've seen with Jerome Baker. And hopefully that's a tradition we see continue, because this roster, believe it or not, looks really good, and you've got those pieces that can fill those cracks that any of these players will leave if they walk.
Yeah, a couple things there to unpack is, as far as the actual numbers are concerned with Jerome Baker, it's, the gut reaction with any contract like this, when a guy goes from his rookie contract to getting extended into a second, there's a little bit of sticker shock once you see the actual numbers. Like, crap, $13 million a year for Jerome Baker. Wow, that's a lot. But I will say, we were thinking the same. I mean, it was a lot of Dolphins fans, not us, but a lot of Dolphins fans thought the same thing when Xavier Howard got extended a few years ago. We're like, wow, like $18-19 million a year for a cornerback. Ugh, that's a lot. And now we're looking at it and thinking, oh no, is Xavier Howard going to hold out this year? Is he going to want a new contract? So that contract tends to get a little bit better as the years go on. And also another point I want to make is this shows, going back over the last few years, Chris Greer's been here a while. It shows the difference between who is making the actual calls between Chris Greer and Mike Tannenbaum a couple of years ago. Mike Tannenbaum would bleed out the clock to the very end. Did it with Charles Clay, did it with Jarvis Landry. A couple other guys Juwan James. And you can make a case that maybe you shouldn't have re-signed those guys in hindsight. But
yeah, but would Juwan James have blown out his knee or been in that position if he was in Miami? Like, it's
right. That's another thing. Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Like, and that is more of a freak thing than anything else. And same thing with Olivier Vernon. The list goes on, where if you wait till the end of the year and Jerome Baker's a free agent, he has all the leverage in those contract talks.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And the other factor as well is we would have been blowing the money out on, some free agent somewhere and trading all of our draft capital for a player that's descending towards the end of their prime, and really, Greer's trying to ride the wave before it starts and see the wave before it starts, and I love that. He's doing a great job of that, and he's not afraid to walk away from like, nope, didn't work, bye. Nope, didn't work, bye. And maybe get something in return for that. And I love that approach. It's a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach, which has significantly better payoff if you hit. And you don't have to hit on everything because you're throwing so much proactively out there that something is going to stick in 90% of these scenarios. So I love it. And the other factor as well, because you brought up the sticker shock. The NFL is flipping to that 17 game season. Yes, we have the downturn because of COVID and things like that as far as the cap goes. But it's not a huge contract this year. It's a $13 million contract a year, moving on out from there. I've got news for you. After the end of this 3-year extension, if Baker continues to ascend and play like he is, where he's still in the prime of his career, he's going to see more than that per year, especially with how much the cap is expected to go up with these 17 game seasons, with these playoff teams added, with all of the things and the continued growth of the NFL that we've seen over the past decade. And as far as the way the cap works. So
Yeah.
that $13 million a year is going to look like chump change, and we're going to be seeing far worse linebackers getting paid more than him before his contract is up, which is another thing I love about that contract.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're both in agreement that this is a good signing here, a great re-signing, and yeah, we've got two left here as far as I'm concerned: Emmanuel Ogba and Mike Gesicki. I would say the Dolphins have more flexibility now that that they drafted Jalen Phillips in the first round and Hunter Long in the third round in those two. But I hope they stick around for a while as well. Um, before we sign off here, Paul, anything else jump out from chat?
Not a lot. One of the things I do want to point out is Shake brought up the fact that Raekwon McMillan was actually a big influence on Chris Greer drafting Jerome Baker. So the fact that Rake didn't work out here as well as we hoped, but he brought Jerome Baker into the fold. The fact that he's a leader on this defense, the fact that he keeps guys up at all times. Thank you, Raekwon McMillan.
I'll say this too is yes, the Dolphins traded Raekwon McMillan to Las Vegas. Now he's with New England. They've got a lot of linebackers in New England. It would not shock me if Raekwon McMillan did not make that final roster. And if you have some problems with the Landon Roberts coming back from injury, maybe you bring back Raekwon for very, very cheap on like a 1 year rental. I still think Raekwon's a good player. He's just, but it shows the difference between Baker and Raekwon McMillan. If you are a 2 down linebacker in the NFL, you could be really, really good. You're still not going to hold a candle to the guy that can play 3 downs like Baker, get over 100 tackles, 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles like he did last year. So, yeah, we'll see what happens as on the Raekwon McMillan front, or if the Dolphins would have interest. Probably not, because they've kind of made their decision on him. But we'll see who's available here as we get further into the summer. Kind of that dead time of year. But hey, preseason is only 2 months away, everybody. So hang on. That's going to do it for our breakdown of the Jerome Baker re-signing, as well as the signing of Jermaine Eluemunor. Be sure to follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the Fansided Network and FinFanatic.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the Fin side.